Hey guys, so one thing I wanted to talk about as well to help clear up at the start of the split is why there is so much variance and games feel so low quality at the start of a new split compared to the end of a split. And the reason is pretty straightforward, which is it has to do with the MMR reset, the soft MMR reset that you experience, and the actual matchmaking. And but I think a lot of people intuitively understand that this is happening, but they don't understand why. And so let me give kind of an example here. So when they do the soft MMR reset, it's not the same for everyone. And what I mean by that is some players are going to lose 400 MMR and some players are going to lose like 900 MMR. And so let's look at an example that I've used. So they've changed this over the years, so this may not be exactly how it works, but this is pretty similar to how a soft reset works. For example, they've changed it recently now that when they went from one season was, one big split to then 2 splits a year in 2023 to now 3 splits a year in 2024. They've had to make it a softer reset. But the way that it used to be described to me when it was once per year is we would take someone who was 2000 MMR and average them out with the average MMR of a player, which was the starting MMR, which was 1200 MMR ELO. And what they do is they take the 2000 MMR plus the 1200 MMR, add them together, you'd have 3200 MMR, divide by 2, and you get 1600 MMR. And now this person who was 2000 MMR is soft reset to 1600 MMR. So they're pulled a little bit closer to the average player, but they're still getting some advantage for having climbed and proven that they were better before. And the issue with this is just mathematically, or it's not necessarily an issue, is that someone who is much, much higher, so someone who is 3000 MMR under that system would have 3000 MMR added to 1200. You can just imagine that they're going to lose much more MMR. So 3000 plus 1200 would be 4200, and then divide that by 2, they're going to have 2100 MMR, which is 900 lower than 3000. So that player lost 900 MMR, the other player lost 400 MMR, brings them a lot closer together than they would have been before, because before they were 1000 MMR apart. Now the 3000 MMR player is 2100, and the other guy who was 2000 before is now 1600. So there's now a 500 MMR gap between them, whereas before there was 1000 MMR gap between them. So, this is one thing. Now, that's not how it works now, because like I said, that was back when there was one season, one split, one season. Now that there's 3 splits, you can imagine it being much softer than that. So rather than, taking a player that was that high up and averaging them with like the starting MMR, they might average them with something that's much closer to where they're already at. So they might lose a little bit, but not lose so much. Probably if they kept things roughly the same, you'd see like a third of that effect, each time there's one of these 3 split resets nowadays. But that's roughly the concept of how it works. So you can understand that a player higher up who's in like Challenger is going to experience a much more drastic drop in rank and MMR than a player who is in Masters. And that player who's in Masters is going to see a much more dramatic drop compared to a player who's in like Gold. That's just kind of the way that it's always worked. And as a result, you get this compression of the ranked ladder where people who were further apart are now playing with each other. And that creates variance. Now, the average is that even if you were in Gold and got put back in Silver, you're still on average playing with people who were Gold last split. It's just that there are some Silver players with good MMR who you're probably more likely to match into now that you're a lower face rank and a slightly lower MMR. And there are also more maybe platinum players or higher gold players that you wouldn't have run into as much before, who have also lost more MMR because they were higher than you and also have a much lower face rank. And so now they're more likely to match into your games as well. So that's one of the reasons why there's so much variance there. Now, another thing that changed very recently that we've been talking about in other videos is that the rank distribution itself was shifted to be very compressed in general, where they put like way more people in the middle. So whereas before 80% of the players were in bronze and silver, now almost all of the players are between like gold and emerald. And so what it used to mean in terms of percentile to be, like emerald, I guess didn't exist, but it would have been between like platinum and diamond, would have been maybe a top 10% player, or higher, which would have been very different than a gold player who would have been maybe like, uh, I don't know, like top 25% or something like that. Big difference between like a top 10% player and a top 25% player playing versus each other. Between nowadays, you'd have like a player who's an emerald and they're like, actually like only the top 20%, and somebody who's in gold and they're still in like the top 30%. They're actually closer together. That's a little bit confusing. Really, it's a topic for another video that we've already covered. But the point is that like an emerald player today playing versus a gold player today is more like what it used to be to have like a platinum player playing versus a gold player previously, or a gold player today playing versus like a bronze player or silver player is more like what it used to be for like a high gold player to play versus a low gold player. There's a very big difference in the face rank, very small difference in the percentile of players because they've been compressed in the middle. What this is going to do is you may even see, like, I don't know, as a gold player, you may even see like the occasional like diamond player who's been placed back into platinum and they're getting put into your game or something like that. And it seems a bit unusual. And that's where some of the variance is coming from at the start of the season. One of the other things that they've done recently is people actually complained about that because they felt like, based on their experience with the rank system before, it would be unfair for a platinum player to be playing versus like a low gold or a silver player. Basically, most people feel like a silver player should never be in the same game as a platinum player. And so people pushed for Riot to, kind of fix that problem. And one of the ways Riot addressed it is they made your face rank actually have an impact on who you were matching with and against. And so you're more likely to match against people with the similar face rank. And that has implications for early season and for variance in early season games as well, which is, let's say I was a, Master 400 LP player, and when I finish my first game, I'm in Emerald 1 because that's the highest that you can get placed. Well, you could also have a D2 player who was 600 LP below me at the end of last split, but they're also going to place into Emerald 1 at the end of their first game because that's the, they're still high enough that they're going to place into Emerald 1, and I can't place any higher than that to create separation from them. And so now that we both have the same face rank, we're much more likely to match into each other. In addition to the fact that my MMR was lowered a little bit more than theirs, and so actually we're a little bit closer together. And so you're going to see more players from above you and more players from below you in your games at the start of the split. The average is going to be the same as the people you were playing against last split with your MMR because it's happening to everybody. Everyone's just getting shifted down a little bit. So on average, you're going to be, if I was, for example, Master 400 LP, on average, I'd be playing against people who were Master 400 LP, but it's not going to work that way in practice. I'm not going to be playing against mostly people who are Master 400 LP or like some who are 300 LP and some who are 500 LP. No, it's going to be like, there'll be like the occasional challenger player, bunch of GM players, and then like D2 players and D1 players and low master players. And it's just a mishmash of all of that in the same diamond games until, some separation is created and people with higher MMR from having been a higher rank last split are able to climb a little bit faster and a little bit higher than those people and then not have to deal with that issue anymore. And then once that separation is created, once games have been played and people's MMR has been more established in the new split, matchmaking gets better because all of a sudden people are in the appropriate rank. And so you're going to see more variance in your games. You're going to have to deal with players at the start of a split who are much lower than you and who are much higher than you being put into your games. This is the cost of, resetting people's ranks a little bit every split to make sure that those boosted accounts and stuff like that, fall out and lose the rank that they had gotten to. It's just the cost of doing that. It's not really the end of the world, but that's just why it is the way that it is. And so I hope that clears some things up. Good luck in solo queue, despite the variance at the start of the season. Just make it through it, and have a wonderful day.